Hello, everyone, and welcome to our program titled All Things Energy for MWFPA members. My name is Carrie Shepard, Marketing Analytics Manager for APPI Energy, and I will be your moderator for today's webinar. Please note that all participant lines are muted. You may submit questions anytime during the session by using the Q&A box on the bottom of your screen. Our presenter today is Ben Etherton, Vice President Consulting with APPI Energy. Joining us as well this afternoon is Jason Collada, President with MWFPA. Welcome, Jason. Let's get started.
Well, thank you, Carrie, and thank you to everyone who's able to participate today. We are very pleased to have the partnership formed with APPI Energy. It's something that's recently was endorsed by our association to have them be an energy consultant, helping our members save both time and money while also creating budget certainty for our businesses. And so I'm pleased to have an opportunity to introduce Ben Etherton, who will be sharing with us about how those opportunities can be realized. So while they offer customized solutions for electricity and natural gas procurement, APPI Energy is also holistic in their approach to energy management, with services and programs available to improve energy efficiency and sustainability through their solutions division. So I hope you'll enjoy the program, and we sure look forward to your feedback. So Ben.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Jason. Jason, we should hire you. That was beautiful. Perfect breakdown of APPI. So yeah, I'm Ben Etherton. I'm the Vice President of Consulting at APPI. I'll share a little bit about myself, and would love to share more about APPI and just kind of break down who we are, what we do, and why we do it. And obviously, really appreciate the opportunity today to speak with you all. Your members mean a lot to us. I'm extremely excited to be introduced to them and get to know you all moving forward, since this is a relatively new relationship, specifically with this association. We'll keep it a little conversational. So, Jason, feel free to interject at any point in time to ask questions. I'm totally open to that. Sometimes I'll ramble a little too quickly, or, jump through a conversation point pretty quick. So feel free to interject.
We'll keep you on track, Ben.
Excellent. So, so APPI Energy, we will be covering energy solutions, the industry today, and our procurement process today. Our organization, APPI, we're technically one of the oldest and largest energy consulting firms in North America. So we manage a multi-billion-dollar energy portfolio for our clients. It's all commercial, industrial, and government entities. We don't really do anything residentially. Now, for some of our food related clients, we do understand that the organization as a whole might own farms and things like that are participants in their corporate structure. So sometimes we're able to include those residents zoned energy accounts for farms related to the corporate entity. But for the most part, we focus on commercial, industrial, and government entities. Ben Etherton, randomly got a start in the energy industry about 8 years ago, a little over 8 years ago. Really did not have a background in specifically energy, and frankly, didn't know all the different opportunities that consumers of energy had. So I stumbled upon APPI when I was exploring new business ventures and opportunities. I had some entrepreneurial endeavors prior. I was in the food space a little bit to some degree, two different ways. One, I owned a crabbing company, so seafood business in the state of Maryland. I'm sure some of you might be familiar with, Maryland blue crabs and crab cakes and things like that. So, had that business entity for many years, and also helped invent the first frozen yogurt vending machine company. So very random, but ultimately created an actual vending machine, swipe your card, frozen yogurt comes out, and we've had them in a bunch of different locations, Uber headquarters, they're in all the Tesla plants and things like that, out in the 49ers Stadium in California, and some other fun stuff. So have done some different things over the years, but came to APPI to help them start essentially their agribusiness division internally. That's what I've focused on. I did some with municipalities initially with APPI as well, but I was focused on two primary sectors, municipal and agribusiness, as an energy consultant. So helped with business development on that side, and over the years have broadened that scope, and now oversee our entire organization with its consulting related efforts. So agribusiness has a special place in my heart. I grew up on the eastern shore of Maryland, which many of you might not be overly familiar with, but it's this little peninsula in the state of Maryland, and it's pretty much all farms. So grew up fishing and hunting and farming and all sorts of things my entire life. And ultimately with agribusiness, what we've come to realize is that no single farm operates the exact same. Every single business entity has its own specific needs, requirements, expectations, etc. So what we do at APPI is a non-cookie cutter approach to a holistic energy management strategy. We don't come in and say specifically, this is exactly how your farm needs to do things, and all 2,000 of you need to do the exact same thing. What we do is we look at your individual needs. We talk to you about your goals and expectations. Some of you might have sustainability goals internally. You might have, initiatives where you want to be 100% green. Some of you might be, totally fine with standard brown power, and that's okay. And it is our job as your independent, agnostic energy advisor to come to you, create a structured, holistic, individually crafted presentation and recommendation based on your energy needs. We do focus primarily on electricity and natural gas. So we dabble in propane, fuel oils, things like that on occasion, but our expertise is primarily electricity and natural gas. So we've really split up all of our service offerings into three primary buckets. One is energy procurement, which is the negotiation of your electric and natural gas contracts, how much you pay per kWh of power or per decatherm of natural gas. Different states across the US are deregulated differently. In Wisconsin, for instance, you do have opportunities to negotiate how much you pay per decatherm of natural gas. However, unfortunately, typically Wisconsin Energy, WE, for instance, would have a regulated electricity market. So there's not really much you can do to negotiate your actual electric spend. But we also then do efficiency projects, things like lighting retrofits, which you see here on this slide, swapping out light bulbs to LEDs, exploring solar, tying solar into battery and AI systems, looking at demand response. Demand response is energy curtailment. It's actually cutting back your power supply at your plant during peak demand times in order to reduce cap tags. Occasionally, you can even get paid for participation in these types of programs. So we help you negotiate all of those terms and find you the most lucrative opportunities. With renewables, that's exploring either a procurement opportunity where you're saying, okay, I want to buy energy contracts that include 100% green power, generation assets. So I want 100% of my power that I'm buying to come from wind sources or something like that. It doesn't mean that you have to actually install a giant wind turbine on your farm or at your processing plant or whatever the case might be. But you can still say, okay, through this negotiation, I want it to come from 100% green energy renewable sources. That's an example. We can obviously then help you further explore if you want on-site generation doing solar, wind, geothermal, hydro, etc. So we get involved in all of that. Combined heat and power is actually a very hot topic. It's been around for a long time, but CHP is something that food processors use pretty regularly. It's something that we explore, essentially taking a regulated resource in a lot of states sometimes as a benefit and converting it into a deregulated negotiable resource. And you get byproducts from that as well. So for instance, in Wisconsin, you can't control really your electricity spend. It might be feasible to convert your large electricity spend into more of a natural gas spend if it's cheaper, because you can negotiate it. And you can do so through a CHP system on site. Through that process, you actually potentially have the ability to also help with sanitation cycles and things like that by heating your water. So you get some other, beneficial byproducts through a CHP process. Utility bill management is online data management systems. So if you have multiple facilities or just one, but you're curious about tracking your facility's performance on a monthly basis and creating certain utility usage KPIs internally. These database systems allow you to track your monthly performance on the billing, but also on utility usage, how much kWh or decatherms you're using. If you see some really weird random spikes that you don't think should be happening, this would help point those out, and we would help facilitate those conversations. So that's kind of a decent scope of the electric natural gas procurement, efficiency, and sustainability type services that we provide, and we'll dive into some further details here. So renewables, again, you can participate in renewables without actually having to buy solar or have any real capital expenditure. One of the ways to do that is through RECs, Renewable Energy Certificates, or VPPAs, Virtual Power Purchase Agreements. These are ways for you as a corporate entity potentially to say, okay, even in a regulated state, sometimes you can say, look, yes, we're in Wisconsin, we can't really negotiate our cost for our electricity, but we do have certain standards internally, and by 2025, we've said that we want to be running on 100% green, and we don't have the space or ability to install wind or solar, but we'd like to purchase wind and solar assets allocated towards 100% of our anticipated consumption. So we can help facilitate that through a virtual PPA, for instance. Through this process, you're hedging against volatile electricity prices. So, you might be able to hedge a 15 or a 20-year contract for solar or something of that nature, where you're fixing a cost. You have to be careful with energy contracts, with solar contracts, things like that, to make sure all the terms and conditions make sense. That's what we're here to help you through. But ultimately, you have the ability to hedge out a 20-year PPA, power purchase agreement, for example, with solar. That price sometimes has an escalator. So you need to make sure, for instance, that the escalator does not remove the ROI opportunity. It doesn't put you in the red. So we make sure that if there is an escalator, it actually makes sense and the financials make sense. But a lot of times we're able to help negotiate agreements that have zero escalators. So you're totally protected on any upward pressure on costs over an extended period of time. So just food for thought, but absolutely, renewables, if of interest, is something that we go down the path of reviewing and helping negotiate on your behalf. So you don't have to be an expert in these things. That's what our organization is here for. And as a member benefit platform, we're doing this entire upfront energy analysis and reviewing options with you at zero cost. So there is no cost and no obligation to proceed with our analysis process, with us doing all the heavy lifting of a thorough, comprehensive bid of looking into renewable energy sources, of potentially building out potential solar programs on site, or whatever the case might be. We, on your behalf, through your association here, have agreed and are happy to help prepare these types of analyses on your behalf. One example of a unique project we've been working on is Marcel. This is in Ameren markets in Illinois. So it's Southern Illinois predominantly. Right around the Chicago area is ComEd, Commonwealth Edison, but a large portion of the more rural or southern, experts or regions of Illinois are, the Ameren territory. So we have this unique opportunity where there's a large energy generating asset, a hydroelectric dam that is going to be producing 60 million kWh of power per year. And we are finding off-takers, so consumers of power who would like to commit to purchasing 100% renewable energy source through a hydroelectric asset like this in the Ameren territory. These are the types of opportunities that we're constantly evaluating and making sure that we have available for you as a consumer potentially. Yep.
So Ben, Jason here, just quick on that. So this dam in the Ameren territory, we can have a user in Wisconsin or Minnesota who's still dealing with their public utility, but the generation is coming from this facility through APPI?
Potentially. So the challenge is with this specific asset, they are looking for an Ameren-based consumer. Any of the association members in the Ameren territory of Illinois would easily be able to participate in this type of project through APPI. We do have other assets that we're reviewing regularly that allow you to across state lines. There are different regulations with different territories and different types of projects, and sometimes the project owner themselves has stipulations. So in Texas earlier this year, we were helping facilitate one for a very large mixed portfolio project. It's a large wind farm and solar asset that would be generating a significant amount more energy than 60 million kWh over thousands of acres in Texas. And what they were specifically looking for is a data center that was going to build their data center on the actual property. So it's a non-existing data center, but a company like Microsoft or Google that would come and build out an entire huge data center and use that energy being generated on site for their operations. So depending on your unique requests and requirements, we would craft and look for opportunities that fit your need. One of which could be in Wisconsin saying, look, we're in Wisconsin, we're in a regulated electric market, but we'd be interested in trying to see if there's any way we can essentially make actual claims that we are buying or committing to buying electricity through green energy sources. And that can be done via a VPPA, for instance, a virtual power purchase agreement sometimes. So we explore all those types of options on your behalf.
Thank you.
Yep. So CHP, we kind of combed over that earlier, but ultimately it's the process of converting an electric spend into more predominantly a natural gas spend. This can be very beneficial in regulated states because you might not be able to control your cost for electric, but you can control your cost for natural gas. So whereas you might use 10 million kWh of electric and only 10,000 decatherms of natural gas in a regulated state, and you can control that 10,000 decatherms of natural gas cost, you might be able to then turn it into a million kWh or 1 million decatherms or 100,000 decatherms of natural gas and reduce your 10 million kWh to a million kWh. So you kind of swap, an electric spend for a natural gas spend, and then you better control your gas spend. Again, all of these things are not things that APPI says 100% of the time makes sense. It is our job as an independent consulting firm to explore all options on your behalf, look into things, and then make sure that it actually pencils. So a lot of the time, these types of services might not pencil. And it is in our interest to make sure that whatever we are recommending truly makes sense for you and your organization. So, we'll be sure to give you that agnostic, earnest, recommendation for any of these types of projects. Demand response, again, basically you get to cut back your power when the local utilities say, hey, today's a peak demand day. We have a lot of pressure on the grid. Usually this will happen during summer or winter months when there's a high heating or cooling demand. And they say, we're really not able to generate easily as much energy as we expect consumers to be consuming. So during those peak days, they ask for certain people that are participating in demand response programs to cut back their power. Now, this doesn't mean that your operation needs to stop operations. It doesn't mean that you need to fully shut down. Sometimes it means that if you're a 10 megawatt consumer of power, you can participate with only 1 megawatt and get paid on the 1 megawatt that you're cutting back by shutting off a portion of your operations, or doing some sort of engineering feat to curtail your energy during that period of time. We also can help explore, obviously, the on-site generating assets, or batteries and generator type facilities that allow you to just turn on a generator or use the power that's in a battery during those periods of time, so that your facility can still run at 100% capacity without any actual lag in production. So it's pretty interesting. You can actually get paid a pretty significant amount of money for participating in demand response, depending on where you are geographically, how much you can curtail, and things like that. So it's our job as your advisor to shop out this DR option into the marketplace. So what we've done internally, and we'll get to it on the procurement side of things, is created a proprietary bidding platform internally at APPI, where we're constantly doing our due diligence and vetting a large number of supplier options or vendor options, and then coming back to you with the ones that can provide a quality service. So with demand response, we don't just go to one demand response provider. We actually go to multiple demand response providers and then come back to you with a list of options for DR participation. LED lights, again, same exact thing. If you're using 30-year-old light bulbs, there's a good chance you could save a lot of money by swapping those out to LEDs. Believe it or not, a lot of the times with warehousing spaces and large food processors and things like that, you all have a lot of light bulbs. And those light bulbs, one, it can improve your organization's general well-being and happiness with better lighting, but it actually can reduce your energy spend pretty significantly on the lighting portion of it. Going from old metal halides to LEDs can absolutely make sense, and it's always worth exploring. Some of you choose to do it on when a light bulb goes out, you go ahead and swap it out for an LED, and that's totally fine. But if you'd ever be interested, our organization would help facilitate getting a lighting engineer organization out there to do a walkthrough, to count light bulbs, to prepare an analysis to show you what sort of savings would be possible by applying LED lights to your facility. Solar PV, there's really 3 main types of solar that you can do. There's rooftop solar, there's parking canopy solar, where you can actually park underneath of it, and then there's ground arrays. Sometimes organizations don't have a ton of rooftop space, maybe only enough space for 10,000 square feet worth of solar, or their roof is too old and they don't want to you usually have to upgrade your roof or make sure that it's at a certain standard to put solar on it. Sometimes we can facilitate the roof replacement cost into the same proposal as the solar. And for all of these types of unique efficiency and sustainability projects, we occasionally have access to a very large fund, which helps prevent you from having any actual capital expenditure, out of pocket expense. We can roll a lot of these types of things into an operational spend, or we have parties that will own and operate and manage and maintenance solar projects that they put on site for you, or things like that. So there's unique options that you can do, even if you don't necessarily think that you have the CapEx available for implementing solar or CHP or any of these other products. Battery storage, we touched on that with the solar, right? When you install solar, that's great. Solar is immediately producing power. If you don't have a way to store that power, it's just immediately supplementing the energy that you would otherwise be consuming. If you have a battery, you're actually storing the power, and then through an AI system, an artificial intelligence system, that battery is gonna start pumping out the energy that the solar has created during the prime times. So instead of you using the energy and using just regular power through the grid during these on-peak periods of time, this is the type of scenario where the batteries would kick in, and instead of you using on-peak energy from the grid, you would just use the stored power, and it would actually help reduce your cap tags and create a lower cost overall for your organization's energy spend. Web-based utility bill management is, being able to track all of your utility invoices through an online data management system. So this is something that APPI can provide access to depending on your internal needs. If you're not interested in looking at your energy bills more than you already have to, and you want to leave it to our organization behind the scenes, we're doing this type of analyses for you. We're constantly monitoring the markets and coming back to you with recommendations. But if you want the more hands-on approach and you want a portal where you can track all of your consumption data, bill history, et cetera, we have that available. So that was energy solutions. The industry today is really what we're using to make our recommendations, to make sure that we're staying, and being the market experts in our recommendations. So we have access to the Energy Research Council, the ERC. The ERC is really the creme de la creme of energy market analytics. So they track energy data, over 500 million data points, to come up with primarily two questions. One is, how long should you buy an energy contract for, and when should you buy it? Those are the two questions: how long and when. That's really what the ERC is trying to help discover and recommend to consumers of power. APPI has exclusive rights to the ERC data. But this is the type of data that Constellation, Direct Energy, a bunch of other suppliers over the years have actually bought into. So it's very high level and helpful in you all making educated decisions. Procurement process, we do operate in all deregulated markets across the United States. Even those white states for procurement for the negotiation of electric and natural gas, there's sometimes unique opportunities in those other states. So if for some reason you're based in Wisconsin, Illinois, et cetera, but you have assets in Utah or Wyoming or Minnesota, there is still potentially something we can do. But 9 times out of 10, or 99% of the time rather, if you're in any of the states that are colored, there is something we can do for you to help you out with either electric or natural gas procurement, negotiating those costs per kWh. We've done a ridiculous amount of energy due diligence on the supplier options in the marketplace across North America. So we also cover Canada and Mexico markets. And ultimately, what we've found is that out of these hundreds of suppliers that you all are likely inundated with phone calls from about energy-related services, it's kind of funny. We find ourselves apologizing on behalf of the industry pretty regularly. We know that you're inundated. And we apologize. Unfortunately, there are a lot of companies and people out there who claim to be energy experts or, can save you hundreds of thousands of dollars and things like that. And, they can be pretty convincing over the phone. So it makes our jobs a heck of a lot harder to help you weed through who to trust and who's going to, properly serve you moving forward. So we've done our vetting and due diligence, and there's really only 40 suppliers right now, 40 suppliers that operate across all of North America that are gas and electric suppliers that have favorable contract terms and conditions and creditworthiness and things like that. And we're constantly reevaluating those suppliers to make sure that there haven't been changes. And there have been over the years times that there's a very viable, credible supplier who goes south. And unfortunately, that does happen. So it's our organization's job to stay on top of that and make sure that we're constantly reevaluating even the suppliers that we do business with on your behalf. Here's an example of our price discovery. So behind the scenes, this is ultimately what we're doing on the procurement front. We're asking all available suppliers for their best offers for both gas and electric. This one right here is an electricity one, but it's the same exact process for gas. We're looking at anything from typically a 1 to upwards of a 60-month contract term length. Occasionally we'll get unsolicited bids for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year contracts. Sometimes you will request, hey, we do want to explore a 10-year contract, and we will do that on your behalf. But primarily, most consumers are hedging somewhere between a 1 to a 5-year contract. So all suppliers bid side by side on the same day through our proprietary bidding platform. We like to refer to our supplier recommendations and our bid process as a true green apples to green apples price comparison, right? We all of you are probably intimately aware of the fact that a green apple can taste dramatically different than a red apple, right? Those are two very different things. You want the Granny Smiths and the Granny Smiths to be compared side by side. So that's what we're doing on your behalf. We're making sure that when you see a price of 2 cents, that it's not too good to be true, right? It's very easy for an energy company to bring you a price of 2 cents per kWh or $1 per decatherm. You can put that on a contract, you can put it in front of a consumer of power, but I guarantee you, as soon as you receive your invoice, you're not going to be paying $1 per decatherm. You might be paying $1 per decatherm for a basis or some line item of your total cost, but it's not going to be exactly what you expected. So we want to make sure that you fully understand what it is that you're signing and what the differences are between the options. So this is just an example of what we're typically breaking down and what we're recommending. You'll notice in the notes section some unique details, something called single billing, that's UCB, utility consolidated billing. In certain markets, you have the ability to, instead of getting 2 different bills, one from the local utility, we were talking about Ameren earlier, for instance, in Illinois. You could potentially get 1 bill from Ameren and 1 bill from whoever the winning supplier is, APPI Energy in this case. Or you could choose, no, I want single billing. So you get 1 bill from Ameren, and on that Ameren invoice, you will have the AEP charge so that you're not setting up 2 different accounts payable and receivable relationships. The 100% swing is your bandwidth provision. That's something that's super important for most energy consumers. Basically, it's saying that you're not going to be held responsible for the exact amount of power that you consume. There are certain energy supply contracts that say, if you use 1,172,672 kWh this year, and that's what we're contracting, you better use that exact amount of power. And if you don't, even though this price says that you're going to be paying 4.8 cents, you're going to be penalized. So what APPI does pretty standardly is tries to find 100% swing in a contract, which means that your usage can go down to 1 kWh or it can double, and you're not penalized one way over the other. So it's really important that you just speak with us, keep us informed as well about any plant changes, operational structures, building a new asset, adding 100,000 square feet, taking down 100,000 square feet. Whatever the case might be, just keep us informed and we help make sure that you're protected in all of your energy agreements. So that's, a picture of our holistic energy approach, right? We're not looking at it from one perspective. We're doing a little bit of everything and making sure that we have all I's dotted and T's crossed on your behalf. Based on what your specific needs are, we're making a comprehensive analysis. Internally at APPI, just so you know, we're a 50-person organization. So we're not 5,000 people. We don't have millions of customers that prevent us from being able to really care about you, the individual. What we like to say is we are intentionally boutique. So, yes, we are one of the oldest and largest energy consulting firms in North America, but we care so much about each individual client that it doesn't behoove us to sign a one-year contract with you and lose you. It is in our best interest to keep you for the foreseeable future. So we've invested in that, and we have an internal customer service team. We don't have a call center or some other organization that fields phone calls. We don't keep you on hold for hours if you need something or have a question. You have dedicated representatives internally at APPI, and we have a dedicated customer service team that helps with any and all questions pre and post contract. So even if you sign a 5-year contract as well, for instance, our organization doesn't then wait until 3 months before your 5-year contract expires to reach back out and assist you moving forward. We are proactively monitoring the markets, setting collars for high and low price trends based on your specific facility's needs, and then reaching out to you when we notice a favorable updated pricing opportunity and helping you hedge and make changes to your contractual agreements if necessary. So it's a proactive, ongoing process that we're doing on your behalf behind the scenes. So that's just by the numbers, some of the details about us, why and how we're one of the oldest and largest in North America, managing several $1 billion in energy spend. And that is all from our end. We thank you so much and open it for questions.
Thank you, Ben.
I was going to say, Ben, how do we get a hold of you? So thank you for supplying that information. Yep. And for the MWFPA members on the call, Ben is our champion at APPI. So he's the person that we'll be dealing with, and we're certainly grateful for that. So thank you for this fantastic information you've shared, Ben. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for our members to engage and save with APPI Energy.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Thank you, Ben and Jason. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them through our Q&A system. If you have difficulty sending your question or you would like to speak with Ben, please feel free to give him a call or email him at betherton@apppienergy.com. And I do have a question for you, Ben. Could you go in a little bit more detail about what an optimal lighting retrofit client may look like?
Yeah, so, lighting retrofits, if you have very old light bulbs and you know that you have not swapped out your light bulbs in a long time and you have a bunch of metal halides or whatever the case might be, it probably behooves you to take a look. While the savings opportunity will be greater based on how many bulbs you have and what process that serves. So think large warehousing, right? Warehousing, cold storage, whatever the case might be. If you have 100,000 square feet plus, you're probably going to save a ridiculous amount of money by looking into LEDs if you have not yet. Now, of course, even for a smaller entity with 10,000 square feet of space, that's, office space or whatever the case might be, if you don't have LEDs, you should consider looking at LEDs because, you will see some sort of savings through upgrading to LEDs. They last longer, they're becoming cheaper all the time, and they tend to be a pretty affordable alternative light bulb moving forward.
Say, Ben, I've got a question for you as well. If we have a member that's currently in a contract and that contract doesn't expire until, I don't know, October of 23, how does that work for APPI to engage with that member?
Yeah, great question, Jason. So we touched on that a little bit there at the end, but basically it really is important, regardless of if you're using APPI or doing it yourself or any other organization. You should always be very proactive with the energy markets. Energy markets are a lot like the stock markets. In hindsight, I wish I'd bought Zoom before COVID, right? I can't go back and buy Zoom now. So energy industry is the exact same. These prices change every single day. Every single day, energy prices are changing. So if you've signed a contract out until 2023, as you mentioned, Jason, that doesn't mean that there's zero work that has to be done between now and then. It does behoove you to start monitoring the markets for future contract opportunities. So what we always encourage and recommend is have an energy expert aware of your current contractual relationship, when that agreement is expiring, what the terms and conditions are of that agreement. Because if you end up changing your usage profile, if you're adding 200,000 square feet to your space between now and 2023, that could dramatically change the type of contract that you need and whatever's happening with that agreement, the pricing, etc. So those type of things make sense to be aware of. But what we've found over the years with 25 years worth of data is that 9 times out of 10, you're paying a 5 to 10% premium when you are within 12 months of a contract expiring. So many consumers of power are waiting until within 12 months of their contract expiring. And what we found potentially behind the scenes is that suppliers know that your contract is coming up for expiration and you're about to be up against the wall and you have to sign some sort of renewal agreement or whatever. And what we found, historically speaking, with 25 years of data is that that price tends to get a lot higher the closer you get to the expiration date. So that's not always the case, but the vast majority of the time it has been the case. So a lot of our clients, through a proactive management strategy, tend to take a future hedged position somewhere between 12 to 24 months before their current contract expires. If you're 2 to 3 to 4 years out, it still makes sense to at least have your eyes on it. And maybe there's one of 2 opportunities if you're 3, 4, 5 years out from an expiration date. One, you might be able to do what's called a blend and extend, where literally you can pare down your immediate price with the supplier by going out an extra 1 or 2 years based on a dramatic market decline. So if prices have come down by 50% and you're hedged and there's no out clause, then you might have the opportunity to renegotiate and say, okay, look, we'll stay with you, but we want to go out an extra 2 more years, but you have to immediately bring down our price for the remaining 3, 4, 5 years in this agreement. So sometimes we're able to do that. Other times that doesn't make sense and it doesn't pencil right. Sometimes it actually is better for you to do one of 2 other things. One, you could cancel your contract, which we would potentially help you evaluate and see what that early termination fee would be. And if the savings by entering you then into a new contract at a dramatic savings would cover the cost of that loss for the early termination fee. That's a very rare thing. We don't recommend it the vast majority of the time, but it's an option. Or you can actually just take a future hedged position, which 9 times out of 10 is what you would end up doing. You still have a year or a year and a half or 2 years left in your current contract. The markets are showing favorable future positions, and suddenly you can sign at a 5, 10, 15, 20% savings for 1 or 2 years beyond your current agreement. So it doesn't affect your current contract at all, but you could in theory sign a contract today that begins in October of 2023 if you would like, and it would go out at a 20% savings versus the current contract that's in place until 2023. So that's something that we always recommend keeping your eyes on and having an expert evaluate for you.
That's great. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your participation today. It looks like we have no further questions at this time. Again, thank you for participating. A special thank you to Jason for joining us today, as well as our presenter, Ben. Today's program is copyright 2020 of APPI Energy with all rights reserved. This concludes today's program. You may now disconnect. Thank you.
Thank you.